Hello everyone, and welcome to Hill Street. Today's story is The Darkness by Unit 256. If you end up enjoying this story, please leave a like, and if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. Now, let's get to this nightmare. Something is happening. No one is sure how it started. Some say it was a science experiment gone wrong. Religious leaders said it was the end of time. A few ambitious statesmen said it was an attack from our national enemies, and that we should launch attacks on them as soon as possible. Others said it was part of a great conspiracy to depopulate the world and get rid of the undesirables under the UN's Agenda 21. The only thing we know for sure is that it's real. What is it? That's also up for debate. The best way to describe it is a destructive darkness. A giant black wall appeared on the coast one day. The fishermen and sailors out in the water were never heard from again. No radio contact, no signal beacons of emergency or otherwise. Nothing. The size and suddenness of the problem convinced most it was not a prank. Maybe something like that could have happened at a couple small ports here and there, but not all the coast simultaneously. Then the darkness moved closer. The news broadcasters and millions of independent internet users streamed it live. Large horn sounds blared behind the veil of the unknown 3 times. It was one of the most horrible sounds you could ever hear. Everyone was frozen, some in awe and others in horror. After the horns, a large metallic clinking could be heard, and the darkness moved forward. Through the camera lenses to those closest to the event, the world watched. The darkness moved closer to the filmers, swallowing everything in its path. From behind the veil, we could hear the sound of car alarms, as cars sounded like they were being crushed at a junkyard. The sounds of buildings crumbled and crashed, glass shattering into smaller and smaller pieces, emanated through the thick. A few curious souls went closer to the veil. It approached them at a snail's pace. The news cameras focused on one person in particular. It was a man who was smaller in stature, someone you'd probably never notice when you passed them on the street. He walked towards the darkness, past all the barriers the authorities put up in an effort to cordon off the area. It moved closer and closer to the man. He stood directly in front of it, facing the darkness, arms outstretched like he was about to cliff dive. The darkness seemed to stop its march for a moment. Was it contemplating whether or not to take the man? All movement by the darkness stopped. The roaring noise of the advance quelled for a minute. The wind gust coming forth from the darkness subsided. The news reporter audibly questioned whether or not they should continue filming, then responded to her earpiece, affirming she would keep the camera on the scene. Slowly, the wind picked up again. The shoulder-length curls on the man's hair bristled with renewed movement. No one could see whether his eyes were open or closed, but we did see something else. What looked like 2 hands eased out of the veil on both sides and slowly engulfed the man. He disappeared in the folds as the hands lifted up into the air. No one was prepared for what happened next. A scream at a volume that shouldn't even be reached by any human naturally spewed forth from the black hands that had just lifted the man in the air. There were no begs for mercy or sounds of regret. It was only the piercing shriek of agony. The news broadcaster cut the sound as fast as they could, while maintaining focus on the hands, but the sound stopped almost as fast as they started. It was a quick death, even if it was intensely painful. The hands began to separate, and chunks of human were thrown out to the crowd of spectators. Blood, mucus, fluids of all kinds. The cameraman quickly veered from the spewing chunks towards the reporter, just in time to see her hair get hit and matted down by the remains of the man whose death they just broadcast to an entire country. The footage quickly was cut by the station at that time, and the anchor said that they were having technical difficulties, but would continue to update people on the situation right after their commercial break. From there, speculators went wild. The internet boards exploded with activity, ranging from everything about theories about how quantum AI and nanotechnology had turned on humanity, to searches about the end times and various religions. No one knew what to make of the issue. True to nature, though, some people made the best out of it. Live like tomorrow might be your last became a very real mantra as death stared hundreds of million in the face and got closer every day. The highways from California, Oregon, North Carolina, Florida, Maine, Louisiana, Texas, and all coastal states from all three sides became so clogged by those running for their lives. Soon enough, gas shortages hit the coastal areas, making those highways and interstates into the world's biggest parking lots. Some walked as far as they could, some accepted their fate. I've lived here for 93 years. I'll die here. I ain't running, said one hardened old-timer. One by one, the states fell and were enveloped by the darkness. The once singular event of the man who braved the darkness and stood open-armed towards the unknown was replaced by thousands of reports of people becoming much bolder. Some ran towards the darkness. It either accepted them, followed by horrible agonizing screams, and what some describe as what it would sound like if a human was shredded up like a piece of paper. The dark wall would toy with others. As they ran full speed towards the wailing noise, it would make a temporary light space, and the people would run through the veil. At this point, they could see the other side. The impression was never a good one based on the reports of what their faces looked like. Some attempted running back out of the veil before instantly turning into pink mist in an instant. Eventually, the live video stopped being posted and information from the front became more scarce as the novelty wore off. The phone towers and internet infrastructures began collapsing due to the lack of workers as well. People chose to not stop walking for days at a time in order to outrun the veil. It's a perilous endeavor though. The intervals at which the wall closes in are not consistent. Sometimes it only takes 5 minutes. Sometimes it is 5 days. No one has figured out the pattern for the interval yet. It all seems so random and arbitrary. In the US, we are about down to 5 states now before we are completely enveloped. Rumors say that other small countries like the UK were wiped out a lot sooner. Everything is speculation though. Society, as much as you can call this new reality society, is so much different. People are treating each other with a little more mindfulness to an extent. These flyover states used to not occupy a second thought in anyone's mind to include the people who actually lived in them. Now, they are the last of the hope for a few more seconds of life. In the grand scheme of things, there is a constant talk about fighting back against it, but there is little action. What would you even do? launch missiles, shoot bullets, lay trap doors. The ephemeral nature of the veil escapes most military defenses' clutches. Scientists can't get samples of it to decide the composition and disposition, and therefore can't make anything to counteract it. The religious crews of all varieties are having a field day, saying it is ordinary, and that a hardship that brings us closer to God is better than the complacent, excessive lifestyle that took us away from God in the past. Others think they're just looking for the last vestige of relevancy when all hope is lost in the end. Despots have tried to promise security to those who are left, but it's not working as well as it has in the past, since destruction is all but guaranteed. For some, myself included, there is a strange peace to it all. Knowing there is nothing that can be done, it's a bit liberating. It takes all the worries off. There is no worry about being taken care of in old age. No concerns about whether the markets will hold long enough for me to have a secure retirement, or worrying about whether my health will be good in 50 years. There will be no 50 years from now, and I'm at peace with that. I am at peace with the darkness. When it comes, it will be here, and the end will be the end. That is all I know. That is all I need to know. I've written this in the off chance something is left when the veil is gone, if it ever leaves. I'll continue to update this as much as I can, but with the irregular intervals of the void, there is no guarantee of how much of this story I'll be able to.